What if somebody's spoken?
Well, hey everybody, Dennis Prager here. Is that Luciano? It's a pretty distinctive voice. And I'm not a voice recognizer, so he must be very distinctive. Was he among those whose career was ended on the Me Too issue? You know what's... I have two basic opinions about that issue. It's really wrong for a man to do what the Me Too movement charges men with doing. Let me say, as a man, quite normal man, I used to say hyper normal, I never acted like that. And I've never said this on the radio, and it's not a boast. It's actually a sort of a puzzle. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I won't go down that road right now. On the other hand, people must be judged in the context of their times, where words and behaviors that were normative at the time, flirting with somebody who worked for you, making propositions in that regard, not if you don't sleep with me, you will be fired. That's evil. That even in its time, that was simply wrong. But sexual innuendos and the like were the norm, like slavery was the norm in the 18th century. And it's really similar. Our reactions, you are unforgivable because you acted that way. A way that was wrong, but in its context was more acceptable, far more so, than today. And you end a person's career and livelihood and reputation over that. And even if it occurred 30 years ago, I mean, the hearings for the judge who was accused of doing something bad in high school.
Oh,
Brett Kavanaugh. That was 30 plus years earlier, and he was in high school. And the left felt that they were decent in bringing that up and putting him in tears. So it says far more about the left than it does, and of course the media sheep of the left, or the media indeed maybe who run the left. They're both. I'm only saying this because I was listening to Luciano Pavarotti, as you were just now. The unacceptability of penitence on the part of the left is one of its many, many cruel characteristics. I often ask, do bad people flock to the left, or does the left make people bad? And the answer is both. Not liberals. Liberals do nothing. They watch the left and they vote for the left, but they don't act like the left. Talking about the left, Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, when was it, this week?
Yeah.
This week he spoke at a Communist Party conference. And it wasn't that he spoke at a Communist Party conference to say how evil communism is, that it's really on a par with Nazism. unless you think that victims of Nazis are more precious than victims of communists. And I say this as a Jew who was preoccupied his whole life with the Holocaust. And it is a unique evil, there's no question. The Holocaust is. But if you read about the Ukrainians deliberately starved to death 6 million or so, the 20 to 30 million in the Gulag killed, murdered, tortured, frozen, starved by Stalin, the 60 million or so starved deliberately by Mao, and what happened in Cambodia with the communist regime there. For a man to speak at a communist, a U.S. senator to speak happily at a communist conference?
I think he spoke admiringly, didn't he?
Did he speak admiringly? I'm always careful.
I sent you that story.
I know you did, so put it up again. This is beyond belief. Although, I have to say, we're living in a time where pretty much nothing is beyond belief. If a man could race against women in college swim meet, then really nothing is beyond belief. And that you're supposed to accept it or you're a hater. So this is from the wonderful Epic Times. Democrat senator under fire after speaking at communist group's gala. Senator Richard Blumenthal, Democrat, Connecticut. Let's see here. Spoke during a recent gala held by a communist group, hailing the event as a remarkable occasion. Blumenthal was present when the Connecticut People's World Committee, a branch of Communist Party USA, held an awards ceremony earlier this month. Okay, so anyway, he was introduced as a special surprise guest. I'm really excited and honored to be with you today and to share this remarkable occasion, Blumenthal said. You don't have to agree with anyone or everyone, with any party or any particular union or organization. I'm here to honor the great tradition of activism and standing up for individual workers that is represented by the 3 honorees here. Blumenthal spoke for about 6 minutes. If you are not already part of the Communist Party, we invite you to participate and contribute and join, Lisa Bergman, one of the event's hosts, said after the speech. The senator's appearance was promoted by the committee in a summary of the night's events. Mercedes Schlapp, a former Trump administration strategist who hosts the Conservative Political Action Conference, wrote on Twitter, "My father was held captive and tortured by the communist regime in Cuba. It is insane," and she capitalizes insane, "to watch politicians in our country embrace the ideology that caused millions across the world to pay a heavy price." Blumenthal, one of the wealthiest U.S. senators, is cozying up with the Communist Party, the Connecticut GOP said. That's really something. He is. He's like $100 million. My silence is incredulity that human beings could have such a broken moral compass as to speak at a Communist Party event. Is he guilty over having that much money? Do you think that that's a factor? So anybody who says they're pro-worker certainly isn't the Democratic Party that is pro-worker. Well, he's not a good man.
What if a Republican spoke at a KKK and said the same thing?
Right, what if a Republican spoke at a fascist dinner?
Yeah.
We don't have fascist dinners, but that's why they call us fascists, because we don't have anything analogous. All right, 1-8 Prager 776. People of Connecticut are indicted too. they voted for this man. There has to be some responsibility. The left always said if you voted for Trump, you bear responsibility, and I couldn't agree more. I absolutely agree. I voted for Trump. Once he was elected, once he ran, I supported him. I bear responsibility. That's correct. We'll be back in a moment.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
How buoyed are you that Americans are finally waking up, JD?
Look, I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. Certainly in Virginia, but also in Ohio. It feels like there's a real grassroots movement brewing on the conservative movement right now. And it's, just like in times past, it's not just the politicos, it's not just the establishment folks. Sometimes not even people who are that political, but they're just very fired up about what their kids are teaching. Their kids are coming home crying, upset because they're being told that they're a bad person depending on the color of their skin, and they're just fed up about it. And I think it may very well take down Terry McAuliffe, but I certainly think it is the beginning of a movement all across this country that's going to take down a lot of Democrats all over the nation.
In the break, we were talking to my team here, and somebody said, "Well, it's neck and neck, and if Glenn loses by 3 points, that's a big deal in any other normal election." And here's the reaction I have, JD. There is no such thing as a normal election after 2016. Do we have any faith that there will be a normal election? Talk to us about the recent breaking news about Facebook and the censorship of conservatives. You've written a piece about it. How do we get back to quote unquote normal, JD?
Oh man, we got a lot of work to do. Facebook did two things basically in the 2020 election, one of which we've known about for a while. They basically censored information that was negative about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. They promoted information that was negative about Donald Trump. And I really believe that swung the election in a really important way.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
You called your son, and you personally promised him you would be here.
Lucas, I don't know how to help you.
Your daddy loves you, you gotta know it, pal.
Do you feel the love?
Prayer is a powerful thing, Ethan. It really does work, if you believe.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking gone.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert
from the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
Hi, everybody. Hey, a reminder to you. One of my favorite two people, Andrew and Todd. I should send them a cigar. I met them. I had lunch with them after advertising for them for about a year. I was very impressed. I got only good feedback. If you are at all considering, or even not considering, refinancing your house, getting a mortgage for a new house, they give you what they call a mortgage checkup, and it's free. There's no obligation. And they may very well say, you're fine. You got a great rate. You're okay. Thanks for calling. But you should check because rates are going to go up with inflation. They've already announced that they're raising the interest rate. That's AndrewandTodd.com. That's Sierra Pacific Mortgage. AndrewandTodd.com. These are good men. And the phone number is 888-888-1172, 888-888-1172, AndrewandTodd.com. I am Dennis Prager. And I have a fascinating story here from Breitbart. Dutch Prime Minister tells public not to cuddle grandkids as Christmas is canceled in the Netherlands. Did you see that one? You sent it to me? So I should infer. Oh, by the way, I made a big mistake. Whoa! It was not. Pavarotti. It was not Pavarotti. It was Placido Domingo. I feel bad about speaking about Pavarotti in a way that might have impugned his character. I don't believe his character is impugned, but some might. So, Christmas has been canceled in the Netherlands, with the Dutch Prime Minister telling the public they cannot cuddle their grandchildren. Prime Minister Mark Rutte has told the Dutch public that there would be, quote, no cuddling the grandkids this Christmas, after the government effectively canceled Christmas. Lockdown restrictions in the country were extended by the government on Tuesday and are now only set to expire after the holidays on January 14th. I should have Ava on. She's that fantastic young Dutch woman I met in Hungary. Yeah, let's have her on next week. According to De Telegraaf, the extended measures include the so-called avond lockdown, or evening lockdown. Oh, Avond. It's Abend in German. Very similar languages. Which forces restaurants, cafes, and non-essential retail to close between 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. 5 p.m.? 5 p.m.? How are restaurants going to survive in the Netherlands? Wow. This reveals the decline of the West more vividly than anything in my lifetime. The wimps that have been made, the fools that govern, the weakness, the non-concern with liberty, the non-concern with the little guy. Supermarkets, meanwhile, are only allowed to remain open until 8 p.m. The government has also requested for schools to close a week early, with primary schools to be closed for the holidays from Monday, and that people work from home where possible. This will do nothing. This will do nothing. What is it, because of Omicron?
Yeah.
How many people have died of Omicron on the face of the earth?
We know of one.
We know of one? Oh, well then it makes sense. After all, as Andrew Cuomo, considered by the left a moral giant for a year, remember? And he said, hey, listen, if everything I do saves one life, it's worth it. If I ruin 10 million lives and save one, the Cuomo family moral giants declare it's worth it. This is not the message we wanted to bring at Christmas, the Prime Minister told the public. At the same time, it can't be a surprise. Regarding his demand that there be no cuddling the grandkids beneath the Christmas tree, for grandparents, Rutte was conciliatory but unapologetic. I understand that this is a bitter message. Politico reports the Prime Minister is saying, but it is absolutely necessary to minimize contact between the kids and the elderly. And you know what's amazing? That people will obey it. Not all. So, by the way, isn't it one of the most highly vaccinated countries in Europe, in the world? So, basically, the vaccines don't work, so don't hug your grandchildren. If you've had COVID, natural immunity doesn't work, so you can't hug your grandchildren. Underneath this at Breitbart, watch Europe in protest against lockdowns, vaccine mandates. Mass demonstrations erupted across Europe on Saturday. Vienna, Rome, and the Netherlands. The Netherlands has seen heavy resistance to impose lockdown measures previously, with Mark Rutte's reimposition of restrictions preceding violent uproar last month. People just have to disobey. You have to stay open. To all of my Dutch listeners, stay open. The police can't go to every restaurant in the Netherlands. The nation was the first European country to re-implement lockdown restrictions. Wow. Okay. Got more news for you. A school district in Philadelphia, students can now identify as non-binary without the parents being told. Your child is 6 years old, says, I'm not a boy or a girl. That's what non-binary means. I understand transgender. I am unaccepting, I admit, of non-binary. That's socially constructed. Imagine that. The left has contempt for parental authority. Ten Commandments has respect for it. It's a battle between the left and the Ten Commandments.
Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Southwest was devastated this week, straight up lying, talking about it was the weather. The reason why 2,000 flights were canceled over the weekend, Friday through Sunday, and then over 300 or nearly 400 more on Monday. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of these people just called out sick. They just called out sick. They've been threatened by their employer because their employer happens to be a federal contractor, and because of that, because the federal government has their hands in Southwest Airlines, they have to comply. Now, here's the news. Nothing has happened as of yet. So technically, Southwest Airlines does not have to comply right now. They can wait for OSHA to make whatever edict they're going to lay out that has not been done thus far. But nonetheless, they suspect that it is coming down the pike. You get all these pilots, 10,000 pilots, 60 to 70% of these pilots are men and women that fought for our freedom, and we're going to kick them off the freaking job. Can you imagine the disruption? You talk about, we look at the ports in California. Can you imagine the supply chain disruption if now we can't even unload cargo ships and we're going to have fewer and fewer pilots? Fewer trained pilots? I don't want to fly. I don't know if they're going to be like United Airlines and bring social justice warrior pilots on. I don't even want to fly. Listen, if you're a pilot, I don't care if you're pink, red, white. I want the best doggone pilot when I'm sitting up in that can 30,000 feet above the ground.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I have never seen in my life the orchestrated hatred to a group of Americans as I am seeing now. It's orchestrated hatred. You are allowed to hate the unvaccinated. Even if the unvaccinated had COVID already, and there is no scientific reason whatsoever for them to take as minimal a risk as it is the vaccine. You are to hate these people. They are killers. They are killing you and themselves. This is this piece of crap governor of California on television.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Schools are lining up to push the transgender agenda on kids and cut parents out of the equation.
Go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The only time you can come to Christ.
You ever thought of going to seminary?
All right, everybody. Dennis Prager here. Pleasure to be with you. So what was the story here? School District Philadelphia. Students can now identify as non-binary. For those of you not up on woke vocabulary, that means not that they are transgender. This is beyond that. They are neither gender. Students are allowed to change their gender without providing legal documentation or a guardian consent. All they have to do is say it. For the first time, students in the School District of Philadelphia, as I pointed out, and it's taken years for me to realize this, Philadelphia has been ruined more than any other city. Its culture, its cultural life, its artistic life, its schools, it's the criminality. Philadelphia vies with San Francisco as perhaps the worst city in the country at this time because of the left. What they've done to the one of the most renowned orchestras on the face of the earth, the Philadelphia Orchestra, the crap that they had them play, which I announced before COVID. Remember? They had a piece where they had a black kid reciting something with the orchestra playing, and he screams curse words and yells at whites. And that was a Philadelphia Orchestra piece, which I read the words for you at the time. It was about 4 years ago. It must be depressing to live in Philadelphia. Look, it ain't great in L.A. Let me make something clear. I'm hardly, it's a contest for the bottom. It's a race to the bottom in every single major American city. Every single one. Biblical thought for the day. How's that? Because that's where I get my wisdom from. Not from the New York Times or Columbia, where I went to graduate school. The fourth book of the Bible, which I am now finishing my commentary on, and I'll have one book left in the 5 volumes of my commentary. It is called Numbers, but the Hebrew title for the book is far more accurate, In the Wilderness. And I was reading very intelligent commentary by the late Jonathan Sacks, chief rabbi of the UK. Passed away recently, sadly. There's actually a video up of the two of us having a dialogue in Canada. It's a very wonderful dialogue. It's up there. And he wrote in his commentary about the biblical view of the wilderness. Where was the 10 Commandments given? In the wilderness. It was intentional. It's not attached to a land. It's not attached to a city. People commune with God better in the wilderness than they do in the city. It's a very interesting thing, the biblical negative view of big cities. Starts with the Tower of Babel. I learned of this after I developed my own contempt for big cities' moral values. On Monday, a new policy went into effect that allows students to identify as non-binary. We do understand that today a lot of individuals, you hear that? A lot. Do you know that, folks? A lot of individuals do not identify as male or female. If they don't, it's 99.99999% induced by society. This is a pathology developed by the left. If you deny it's pathologic not to believe you're male or female, then the word really has no meaning. I'm not condemning these people, but it's not healthy. Is that fair to say? You don't know if you're a boy or a girl, but you're fine? We do understand that today a lot of individuals do not identify with the gender to which they were born, said Monica Lewis. Shocking, a woman involved in this. Spokesperson for the School District of Philadelphia. The district now provides students with an option to fill out a form that allows them to change their gender identity. You don't need a doctor's note. You don't need a legal note. You don't need your parental permission. You don't even need to tell your parents. You just assert, I'm not a boy or a girl. All right, everybody. We're going to continue. ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384. The story with Relief Factor is quite simple. For the great majority of people who take it, it relieves muscle pain, joint pain. It's an anti-inflammatory that is safe. As far as I know, you can take it forever. You will know in 3 weeks whether it works. That they tell you that. So if it doesn't work in the 3-week tryout, cancel your order. And the 3-week tryout is just $19.95. So if you have joint or muscle pain, I don't know why you wouldn't try it. ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I have never seen in my life the orchestrated hatred to a group of Americans as I am seeing now. It's orchestrated hatred. You are allowed to hate the unvaccinated. Even if the unvaccinated had COVID already, and there is no scientific reason whatsoever for them to take as minimal a risk as it is the vaccine. You are to hate these people. They are killers. They are killing you and themselves. This is this piece of crap governor of California on television.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Schools are lining up to push the transgender agenda on kids and cut parents out of the equation.
Go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
You ever thought of going to seminary?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The Democratic Party somehow has convinced black people that they're the good guys. Never mind the skanky history of the Democratic Party. That was a party of slavery.
They're racist, racist, racist. Everything's racist.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
Hard to imagine a song like this being written and composed today, isn't it? You know why? It's too innocent. One of the characteristics of the dominant culture, which is all left in the United States and in Europe, is cynicism. Everything pure is crapped on. Everything. So here's another example I'm reading to you. This is, by the way, from a Philadelphia, the ABC station in Philadelphia. This district now provides students, this is in Philadelphia, with an option to fill out a form that allows them to change their gender identity. It is really as simple as downloading the form and then identifying with whichever gender, whether it's male, female, or the non-binary option. The preference that the student chooses will be used in school tools like Google Classroom, and in school-facing systems that include report cards and school district records. The change will not be reflected in the state records. Pennsylvania is still required to record information that correlates with a student's legal birth certificate. But that we won't have legal birth certificates stating sex anymore if it's up to the American Medical Association. The new binary option falls in line with the school district's Policy 252. Policy 252 is a policy we have in place to affirm the rights of students who are transgender, said Lewis. Students will be allowed to change their gender, including the non-binary option, without providing legal documentation or a parent or guardian's permission. Okay, that's the key to me of what is happening. Parents schmerents. Here's another story for you on what the left is doing. From the College Fix, professor of color denied funding for cutting-edge laser research. Why? Because of, quote, insufficient equity, diversity, and inclusion enthusiasm. Did you know that professors have to sign pledges to equity, inclusion, etc. Remember the uproar when there were places where you had to sign in the 50s a pledge that you're not a communist? Which strikes me, whether right or wrong, at least it has a moral basis. Chemistry professor Patanjali Kanbanpati said he has been denied 2 grants over the past 2 years for failing to properly pledge allegiance to equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Scroll down to the actual document. You have to scroll a bit.
Okay, so where does it begin?
You'll see it. Just keep scrolling, and you'll see the Natural Sciences Engineering Research Council of Canada.
This is, this is in Canada? Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Canada's even worse than we are. This is to acknowledge NSERC's receipt of the above application. Is that what you're referring to?
Where it says the following analysis of this.
Okay. No, I don't. So this is, I'm going to look up the word following. What is that? That is the actual pledge?
It gives you the statement.
Okay, it doesn't say following. I'm sorry.
You just have to scroll down.
All right, here, you find it for me because I clearly can't. There are pledges that have to be taken at universities by professors, and it is an amazing thing. Most of them, of course, do.
Just read under the red line.
The equity, following an analysis of the application, it has been removed from consideration. This is to the professor, Department of Chemistry, McGill University. That's the most prestigious university in Canada. The equity, diversity, and inclusion considerations in the application were deemed insufficient. Wow. Should I continue, or is that sufficient? But and they even say that's the reason you are not being considered for this grant.
Yeah.
The equity, diversity, and inclusion considerations in the application were deemed insufficient. Can you find the actual pledge that they have to take to diversity, equity, and inclusion? Canada's lost. I mean, Canada is over. The last best hope on earth still is the United States. I'll tell you why, because we are the only one with a vigorous conservative opposition to the left. There is none in Europe. There are individually great human beings, but there is nothing like this. There's no talk radio in Europe. This is tens of millions of people every day who are hearing truth. There's more truth in talk radio than there is in the New York Times. Okay? That's my view. And or the Washington Post or ABC, CBS, CNN, or all of them. We don't have interviews. Well, I would actually, to be honest, I would interview the woman. If she'd come on, she wouldn't come on. They don't debate the left. They smear. But the woman who was interviewed on NPR last year, I'll never forget this. She wrote a book called In Defense of Looting. It's given an hour on National Public Radio. How's that? Well, she's certainly been listened to. The number of young people who think that stealing is fine, in fact, more than fine, they are getting their just desserts. This is what they are owed by this society. A Gucci bag. 1-8 Prager 776. Got an interesting question here. How many of the 10 Commandments did Trump violate? From Robert in Naples, Florida. I'm going to try to get you, Robert. I'm going to try to take you in light of the 10 Commandments preoccupation of mine. Let's see. He violated do not commit adultery. And other than that, well, he might have violated do not covet. I don't know. He might have. How many have you violated, Robert? Just out of curiosity. And by the way, that's a very important question because it shows the impossibility of dealing with the left. The moment you speak about the left, which composes tens of millions of people, they speak about one man, Donald Trump, as if there is some sort of balance. Back in a moment.
You ever thought of going to seminary?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The Democratic Party somehow has convinced black people that they're the good guys. Never mind the skanky history of the Democratic Party. That was a party of slavery.
They're racist, racist, racist. Everything's racist.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
How buoyed are you that Americans are finally waking up, JD?
Look, I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. Certainly in Virginia, but also in Ohio. It feels like there's a real grassroots movement brewing on the conservative movement right now. And it's, just like in times past, it's not just the politicos, it's not just the establishment folks. Sometimes not even people who are that political, but they're just very fired up about what their kids are teaching. Their kids are coming home crying, upset because they're being told that they're a bad person depending on the color of their skin, and they're just fed up about it. And I think it may very well take down Terry McAuliffe, but I certainly think it is the beginning of a movement all across this country that's going to take down a lot of Democrats all over the nation.
In the break, we were talking to my team here, and somebody said, well, it's neck and
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Right? So this has changed in the culture. We now have entire stadiums screaming blank Joe Biden.
Right.
I actually think that in some measure this is a sign of health in the country.
I don't think you're wrong. In fact, my last column, I talk about in essence, what the American people are feeling in terms of how they're being treated by the current administration.
Now, excuse me, by the way, I'm not saying I approve of it.
Right.
It makes me uncomfortable.
Clearly.
But
No,
at the same time,
we're talking about what we're observing.
It seems like a strange sign of health that we feel free enough to say that.
Well, and I don't even know that we necessarily feel free. What I would say is that the American people feel like kind of a battered spouse at this point.
Okay, you wrote an article.
And that the administration is so abusive to how they're treating people that this reaction that you're seeing, and it started out in 2 college football stadiums. It's now been in dozens to hundreds.
It's the new wave.
NFL teams had it going on this week. Talladega or NASCAR or whatever they ran had people chanting it. There is something so inherently abusive about how people are being treated
by the
that
government.
They are, and particularly in a society that wouldn't consider itself particularly Christocentric. And it is, I am actually thankful, to your point, to see a degree of we're not going to let this abuse continue, even if it's nothing more than using our freedom of speech to say something that's very vulgar and attach it to him. We're not taking it anymore.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
When I started teaching, I was only 25. I was only 7 years older than my students. That's not a great span of time for between a man and a young woman, and it is a daily distraction.
That's right. It is. I thank you for your honesty. That is exactly right, and it is not his fault. He's built that way. It's no more his fault than food is a distraction to the hungry. Okay? There is no difference between the two. So, I'll tell you an interesting story, really interesting. Many years ago, and I can't find this on the internet, maybe one of you can, and that would be of great help to me. I only remember that he was from a university in Indiana, but I don't remember which university. What did it say, Sean? So a professor did a study and found that one of the 2 groups, I don't remember the second, of men most likely to divorce were high school teachers. And I think college teachers. In other words, men around a great number of young women divorced at a greater rate than any other men. And I had that professor on with that study. So if you could find that, I could read it to you.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Americans still have enough fighting spirit. We're not Canada, we're not Sweden, we're not Germany. And
I would say that even under lawful elections where it was close but you lost, the incoming administration would say, you know, we don't really have a mandate. Normally people would say, I've got to deal with this closely divided group. I can't do great, big, dramatic things. This group has come in and said, we are going to go as hard to the left, as hard to progressivism, as hard to socialism, as hard to communism as we can, as fast as we can. We are going to go as hard to the godless view of everything as fast as we can. We are going to empower our enemies and insult our friends. We are going to undo everything the previous administration did, not because it's necessarily good for the country, but simply for the fact that the previous administration did it. And where that really came back to bite us in the backside, and I think that where you really start to see the "let's go Brandon" phenomenon is following Afghanistan, because when the previous administration had left an exit plan saying, if you follow these guidelines, make it conditions-based, we can get everybody out safely. We can get all of our allies out before we take the military out. We can get rid of our equipment. We can do all this stuff. And because Joe Biden said, I'm not doing any of it, and the only reason he said it was because the previous guy did it, and we got 13 Marines killed, and we lost a lot of Americans in the process that are still behind enemy lines even to this day, that's when America woke up and said, wait a minute. This isn't right. And you're starting to see, I think, a groundswell that is going to roll all the way through the 2022 election cycle.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Southwest was devastated this week, straight up lying, talking about it was the weather. The reason why 2,000 flights were canceled over the weekend, Friday through Sunday, and then over 300 or nearly 400 more on Monday. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of these people just called out sick. They just called out sick. They've been threatened by their employer because their employer happens to be a federal contractor. And because of that, because the federal government has their hands in Southwest Airlines, they have to comply. Now, here's the news. Nothing has happened as of yet. So technically,
or the happy hour on the Dennis Prager Show. Every Friday, second hour. We haven't missed a beat in 20 years, 21 years. Actually, 22 years. Because happiness is so morally important, aside from emotionally important. All right, give it to me. It's happy, 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 happy hour.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. That's right. Thank you, Doctor. Yes, indeed, folks. We have a doctor in the studio, a psychiatrist, the only one that I regularly have had on the Happiness Hour, the only guest that I've regularly had on the Happiness Hour. Forget whether doctor or not. Dr. Stephen Marmer, who is in private practice as a psychiatrist in Brentwood area of Los Angeles, and who has been teaching psychiatry at UCLA for many years. Dr. Stephen Marmer, welcome back to the Happiness Hour.
I'm happy to be here, Dennis.
Bless your soul.
Thank you.
That is
Thank you.
That is good. So, there's so much. I mean, I could have you on every week, to be honest. It's a compliment, but I'm not saying it to be complimentary. It's just a fact. So, the biggest problem I have when I have you on is deciding what topic.
Correct.
But I want to help people. I want to use you to help people today. So among the other subjects I want to talk to you about is fear. A topic that has become so obviously significant. Let me bounce off a thought, and you know I'm totally fine if you don't agree with me. So I wrote a column recently that one of the many revelations of the last year and a half has been that I had always thought love or hate, or love and hate, are the most powerful emotions in the human species. And now I think fear is greater than love or hate. What do you think about that?
Greater than, hard to measure, but it's certainly in the same category. I mean, it's one of the most powerful motivators and one of the most powerful influences on the way we live.
So I became aware of this only in the last year and a half to 2 years. Were you always aware of this?
Yes.
Because so many of your patients have fears?
So many of my patients have fears, most of them irrational fears. Most of them are driven by the assumption of danger where it doesn't exist, or the avoidance of danger, or, that's what basically generalized anxiety disorder is. You're afraid, and you often can't even articulate what you're afraid of, but you just live in fear, and that twists your whole approach to life. It bends it in bad directions.
So I have a question there. How much of it, and I know it's not statistically answerable, but how much of it do you think was built in their childhood, and how much was built into their nature at birth?
There are kids who are highly, highly sensitive when they're born, and they're more vulnerable to bad things happening in their childhood. There are sturdy, resilient kids who can live through bad circumstances and seem to bounce back from it because they filter their sensations and their emotions better than the kids who are more permeable. But if you are a sensitive kid and you have a very encouraging, warm, wonderful, protective environment, you can overcome a lot of that sensitivity. If you are a sensitive kid to begin with and you have a bad childhood, a dysfunctional one, or one that encourages fear or gloom or depression or danger, you're really in trouble. You're going to be bent in such a way that it's pretty hard to straighten it out. It takes a lot of effort.
So you have seen a generalized childhood among your frightened patients?
Yes. Usually they are kids who were never taught to be brave, never taught to believe that the world was going to be okay even in the face of some adversity. If you have calm parents who are reassuring when you're scared, then you can grow up to become that kind of a calm parent who will reassure your kids that everything is okay. But if they overreact, if every little bump and bruise becomes, almost an emergency case, or if they're warning you every minute of every danger around the corner, then you're going to have that tendency in you grooved in so deeply that it's hard to overcome.
I think that's persuasive, because I started to think, look, people have natures. Some people have braver natures than others, or less afraid natures, even forgetting bravery. But what you say makes sense to me, because, of course, everybody listening, including me, is thinking of our own parents. And you knew my parents.
Yes.
The last thing you would describe my father was frightened.
No, he was not. He was not frightened. He was a confident man.
Right.
And fundamentally a happy man.
That's right. So that's big. So that's fascinating. So the living martyr, we knew his parents too. Would that be fair to say about your dad? Did your dad radiate fear?
No, I wouldn't say he radiated.
You want to give him? Do we have another mic here? Good. The reason I'm doing this, folks, is because I'm personalizing it, because that's what the subject is. It's personal.
No, my father didn't radiate fear.
By the way, I'm saying fathers in all your cases, in all our cases, because especially with boys, that's our model. So
yes.
If dad is afraid, it's a big deal.
Correct.
Or absent.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So go on, Alan.
No, he didn't radiate fear, but there was a sense in the family of sort of preoccupation with safety, which may not be unusual. But I don't think my father would fall into the same category as your father in terms of sort of disregard for your well-being, meaning your health or your safety. He was a little more on further
right
toward the spectrum of,
which obviously I inherited, but not every child inherits that. Look, I'm only saying the obvious. Life is complex.
I would also add that sometimes fate intervenes as well. If a child has several serious illnesses in the first year of life, or gets into a terrible accident or something like that, that can trigger that can change the course a little bit. In my own case, I was hospitalized 3 times before the age of 6 with different illnesses, and it took some serious work on my part to feel robust and confident about my health and safety. But I did.
Well, you had a severe case of aversion to fakery. ATF.
Very severe case.
Yeah.
Intellectual dishonesty
Right,
and fakery.
yes. Made you sick.
Made me sick. Still makes me sick.
Why is this barber boy in the hospital? He just sees all the lies that go on in the world. It would be appropriate in your case, which is obviously an important trait. So I assume the answer is yes, but I'll pose it anyway. I assume in the last year and a half, fear has only increased among many of your patients.
Almost across the board.
Almost across the board. Wow. And what does it do to them?
It causes them to hide. It causes them to worry about everything. It causes them to be alienated from their relatives and friends who are not as afraid.
That's so true.
And it has, I often say we live in a digital age, but we are analog people. We need analog experiences, which means we need other people. We need to gather, we need to celebrate, we need to interact, we need to talk with one another. And all of this fear has diminished something that's absolutely necessary for a good life and for a happy life.
People, yes.
And, now that we're in the Christmas season and the holiday season, we are being cautioned about gathering together when that's exactly the opposite of what we need. We need, in fact, to be together and reinforce our bravery.
Dr. Stephen Marmer is my guest on this Happiness Hour. The issue is fear, his patience, the times we live in. 1-8-PRAGER-776. I'd love to know if anybody listening has been able in life, not just necessarily in the last year and a half, in life, to stop being a fearful person. 1-8-PRAGER-776, the Happiness Hour.
Great.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Out of your mind if you think this family can pick you up every time you fall.
Every time I take one step forward, seems like I fall. Boy, Dylan Wright came in this morning. He wants to fight you. Never say die, gonna give it all. This is your opportunity to get back on your feet. This is my time. Won't quit, I'll just begun. You gotta know who it is you're fighting for. That's the fight, Bo.
I can't believe I'm saying it, that Bo Lawson can go 10 years without a competitive fight, and here he is going toe-to-toe with the world champion. No one expected this out of him.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Good. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I'm a green card holder, have been for 20 years.
Thank you. From where?
When I first, from South Africa.
Excellent. Thank you.
When I came into this country, I had to have blood tests to see that I didn't have syphilis, gonorrhea, HIV. I had to show all kinds of vaccinations. I had to show means to be able to support myself, et cetera, et cetera. So my point being is that the law is not being upheld as we understand it. And so I don't understand how they are circumnavigating the law again. I mean, obviously allowing these people into the country in the first place without proper vetting, etc., is one of the ways. But I mean, the laws are written for legal immigration. There are methods and ways of doing it. They say the system is broken, but it's not broken. It functions.
Greg, I am deeply in your debt. Stay where you are because I've got a couple of questions for you, but just an addendum to your magnificent remarks. The system is not broken. We totally have a system that is set up to work if the laws that are on the books will only be enforced. But that's a huge if, and they are being intentionally ignored. So 20 years you've been here, right? And as someone who's actually followed the law, share with me a couple of minutes of your experience on whether it was too easy, too hard, or just right.
I think it was just right.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
The Democratic Party somehow has convinced black people that they're the good guys.
MyPillow.com or call 800-761-6302, promo code Prager. Hi, everybody. Just a reminder, we have dissociated ourselves from the Salvation Army, which has been poisoned by the anti-racism hysteria, which is sad. Their leadership should resign, then I'd be more than happy to become one of their leading fundraisers again. So for a couple of years now, we have been promoting in this season the Angel Tree campaign to get a gift to a kid who has a parent in prison. I want you to know that you, my listeners, have already surpassed the goal that my show raised. I could actually stop talking about it and honor my contract. But I that's not what's on my mind, honoring the contract and getting to that goal. It's helping these people raise money. So there's a banner at my website for the Angel Tree campaign. Dr. Mom, we're talking about that. I'd love to, we can't do it now because I don't want to leave this topic, but I'd like to do a topic on mental health as increased by doing good things.
I endorse that.
I'm sure you do. I think it would be a very good, great topic. So I'm talking to Dr. Stephen Marmer, who teaches psychiatry at UCLA and who is in private practice in Brentwood. And as I surround in fear, be happy?
Very, very, very difficult. Generally, I would say no, they can't consistently be. And when I talk about fear, I don't mean a realistic assessment of a genuine danger. I mean somebody who has kind of a universal or ubiquitous fear or an exaggerated fear over things way beyond what is called for.
You're free you're free to take the fifth on this, but when I see people walking outdoors with masks on, I assume that they have an irrational fear. What makes that person tick?
It's a superstition. They have a superstitious belief that walking around, some of them have a superstitious belief that if they walk around with a mask all the time, that they will somehow or other be protected. It's not unlike wearing a garlic clove around your neck, hoping that werewolves and vampires will leave you alone.
Would you have predicted this amount of irrational fear in America?
No.
Wow.
I would not.
Wow. That's depressing.
If we go back to March of 2020, and I think it was reasonable for all of us to be bewildered and to have concern about the potential for this thing. But by April or May, certainly by the end of May, we should have calmed down quite a bit and seen things in a more realistic proportion.
What prompts having 2-year-olds wear masks on airplanes? Well, do you have a theory?
Superstition. It's partly superstition. It's partly
is Dr.
virtue.
Fauci superstitious?
In my opinion, yes.
Wow.
That is to say, well, I'll take that back. I don't know whether he's superstitious or whether he's just got to follow the logic of his agenda, even to the point of absurdity.
When I see kids taking off planes, 2 years old, and crying, as they should, parents should be crying too. All right, I'm going to go to your calls for Dr. Marmer here, and let's see. He is of how the people, yes, indeed. All right, let's go to John in Cleveland. Hello, John.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, Dennis.
Hi there.
Merry Christmas, even though I know you're Jewish, but
I am totally happy being told Merry Christmas, and when I'm told Happy Holidays, I respond Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Ironically, I'm atheist, so when people say like Happy Holidays to me, I always say Merry Christmas. You know, I yell at them.
You're my man. You are my man. I'm not kidding.
There we go.
Yep.
So you were talking about people in fear, and I wanted to make a quote from one of my favorite movies, Men in Black, which is, Will Smith has been told by Tommy Lee Jones that aliens live among us, and he's just found it out. So Will Smith says, why the big secret? People are smart. And Tommy Lee Jones says, a person is smart. People are dumb, dangerous, panicky animals, and you know it.
Did you memorize the line? Is that is that the actual line, John?
That's the actual line.
You know what? Let me just say something that has nothing to do with fear or the subject. One of the many divisions in the world, you know, the happy, the unhappy, the rich, the poor. One division in the world is those who can memorize movie lines and those who can't. I can't. That was very impressive, I must say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. But it's a good state of seeing how people react to COVID or any other manufactured hysteria. And in fact, I've read Still the Best Hope. I've read it twice. And your chapter about all the fears that have been peddled throughout time that people have felt for, whether it's anorexia or secondhand smoke, apply it to that. People are dumb, dangerous, panicky animals.
Well, you're a kindred spirit, atheist or not. That's exactly right.
Let me jump in and tell a story. When I was a kid, I looked at a New Yorker magazine, and it had a cartoon of a young man in the jungle with an older man, and there were all kinds of weird, monstrous creatures around, and the young man was shivering, and the old man said, once you'll stop being afraid once you know they're real. Meaning that reality we can deal with. Fantasy has a fear factor that goes above and beyond, and if we are prisoners of our fantasies, we will be in fear.
Well, I have the chills, and I'll tell you why. I think I have the time, a few seconds. My older son was about 6 years old, walking around the house, shooting monsters with a broom. And he looked at me and he goes, Dad, are monsters real? My brain raced. What do I answer him? And I said, yes. And he stopped shooting.
Yeah.
It's exactly your story. I'm very proud of myself on that one. Monsters are real, my friends. We'll be back.
Big secret. People are smart. They can handle it.
What's the phrase?
Who's singing this?
Bing Crosby.
So, Bing. You see, I know the voice, and I didn't. Bing Crosby. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Happiness Hour. My guest, Dr. Stephen Marmer, psychiatrist, teaches psychiatry at UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles, in case you don't know what UCLA stands for. So we're talking about fear. We're going to talk about the holidays as an antidote, or at least as fear as a killer of the holidays, either one or both. I just want to say something about my own attitudes, because I'm not, as the doctor knows, in the fearful category. I love life more than I fear death. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
That's why I have not allowed myself not to live life in the last 2 years. If I die, and I'm not cavalier about it, I don't want to die, but I don't fear it. I do fear not living. It's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. And to have a pulse, but not to have vitality.
Right, is dead.
Yeah.
So the holidays, or specifically the big one, Christmas, is pretty imminent. So I assume that fear can just ruin it.
Absolutely. And the antidote to that is to get our courage out of mothballs and to remember, first of all, that human beings, I mean, we wouldn't still be alive 100,000 years or however many tens of thousands of years if human beings were incapable of surviving difficulties and adversities. And obviously, the people who came over from other countries to found America, they faced adversity and they managed to survive. And so I'm not saying be foolhardy, and I'm not saying do dumb things, run across the freeway fearlessly or stuff like that. But think proportionately and believe that if you make courageous decisions, chances are you're going to have a good outcome. And we need people. The number one thing to improve your immune system, besides all the vitamin D and all the rest of that stuff, is being around other people. That helps your well-being, it helps your vitality, and believe me, it will help your immune system. Just ask anybody who's alone in a hospital whether they would feel like they're recovering better if they have loved ones visiting them.
Might one factor be, when you mentioned people in the past, this hit me, their life has been so easy for generations since World War II in America, for most people. Does that contribute to the lessening of bravery?
We're soft, and we expect not to have to face any challenges. And so things are so good that a hangnail becomes a major catastrophe.
Okay. I thought that was the case. Okay, everybody. Jason in St. Paul, Minnesota. Hello.
Hi, Dennis and guest. Hey, I believe that I've rebelled from my overcautious, fearful father into maybe an extreme risk taker. He was always warning me to take it easy, keep your head down, don't talk back, get your benefits, take the easy road. And I became a drug addict and a rock musician, and I moved all over the country in rebellion, I think.
That I've never heard that as a source of addiction. What do you say, doctor?
Well, I had an uncle who used to say, most of us are because of or in spite of our parents.
Oh, that's great.
And
that's great.
So sometimes the reaction is to go so far in the opposite direction that you're really basically doing the same thing.
Right. Your parent is still controlling you.
Yes.
Are you sober now?
Yeah, now I'm sober. I have a few glasses of whiskey a night, and I have a regular lifestyle with a job. The point is, though, one of the things he told me growing up was never marry a woman who's too pretty or too smart.
He really didn't want risks. All right, I understand. That's hilarious. But that's a beautiful father.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
How buoyed are you that Americans are finally waking up, JD?
Look, I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. Certainly in Virginia, but also in Ohio. It feels like there's a real grassroots movement brewing on the conservative movement right now. And it's, just like in times past, it's not just the politicos, it's not just the establishment folks. Sometimes not even people who are that political, but they're just very fired up about what their kids are teaching. Their kids are coming home crying, upset because they're being told that they're a bad person depending on the color of their skin, and they're just fed up about it. And I think it may very well take down Terry McAuliffe, but I certainly think it is the beginning of a movement all across this country that's going to take down a lot of Democrats all over the nation.
In the break, we were talking to my team here, and somebody said, "Well, it's neck and neck, and if Glenn loses by 3 points, that's a big deal in any other normal election." And here's the reaction I have, JD. There is no such thing as a normal election after 2016. Do we have any faith that there will be a normal election? Talk to us about the recent breaking news about Facebook and the censorship of conservatives. You've written a piece about it. How do we get back to quote unquote normal, JD?
Oh, man, we got a lot of work to do. Facebook did two things basically in the 2020 election, one of which we've known about for a while. They basically censored information that was negative about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. They promoted information that was negative about Donald Trump. And I really believe that swung the election in a really important way.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
You called your son. You personally promised him you would be here.
Lucas, I don't know how to help you.
Your daddy loves you. You gotta know it, pal.
Prayer is a powerful thing, Ethan. It really does work, if you believe.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk?
Hi, everybody. The Happiness Hour. Want you to be happy in this holiday season, my friends. I'd like you to be happy all the time. You can't be happy if you're frightened. So I have Dr. Stephen Marmer, psychiatrist, LA, teaches psychiatry at UCLA, on this issue. So people want to know, and you want to tell us, what you recommend to people.
Well, whenever you're faced with a situation, think about what the most courageous or bravest response could be, and have faith in yourself. Have faith in your agency, have faith in your ability to reason things out and to overcome. Have faith...
Wait, that was so good, I want to dwell on it for a moment. That's right. If you can't imagine what a non-fearful response would be, you can't have a non-fearful response.
Correct. And I'm not saying do foolhardy things.
No.
But I'm saying...
Right. Hugging your grandchildren is not foolhardy. And the Prime Minister of the Netherlands just told his people, don't hug your grandchildren.
Yeah, that would be an example.
It's worse for your health not to hug your grandchildren than to hug them. Is that fair to say?
Unquestionable.
Right.
And recognize that by being with other people and demonstrating courage, you will allow them, you will ignite in them the inspiration for them to be more courageous. And so it's good to hang out with other people and to reassure them and to demonstrate that you are not the prisoner of fear. You are mindful of real danger, but you don't have to be the prisoner of fear. It's like the difference between recognizing a real symptom and going to the doctor versus being a hypochondriac. A hypochondriac is a person who is imprisoned by fear of illnesses way thousands of times more exaggerated than the reality. And we don't want to encourage that kind of hypochondria. As far as with your kids, if your children are frightened, be reassuring. Help them talk through what it is that they're afraid of, and then check it out. Shine the flashlight under the bed or whatever it might be, and reassure them that you're there to help them and to protect them, and that they have the power to take care of themselves with your help.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, Dr. Marmer. You will be visiting your grandchildren in Texas in a week or so. Here you go. Will you hug them?
Is a bluebird blue? They'll be crawling all over me. Absolutely, I'll hug them. And one more thing. Read heroic stories. Read stories about people who took a chance, who were courageous, and who prevailed. And read those stories to your kids.
That's right. Well, this powerful, that's worthy of its own hour too. The one that I stopped you at to reflect on. You can't do something good or healthy if you can't imagine it first.
That's right. I mean, some of us have it so grooved in that we do.
Instinctively. But most of us, right. I love that. That's really great.
Yeah, think it through. Imagine what would the brave thing be to do, and what are all the advantages of doing that brave thing, rather than, in other words, don't be so risk averse.
By being a psychiatrist, you're a medical doctor. Psychologists are not medical doctors.
Correct.
This is not a knock. It's they're just explaining. So, as a medical doctor now, not a psychiatrist, although that would play a role. Okay, is staying alone for all these months, past a year, does that have a physiological impact? Does it hurt your health?
Yes. We are not, it's as old as ancient texts. It's not good for man to be alone. We are social creatures. We need to be with each other. We are analog. We are not digital. And therefore, we need to be in groups of other people that we can interact with. And if we don't, then we are more vulnerable to depression, to fantasy, to greater and greater fear. We need to be in the presence of other people so that we can be truly human.
I think the mask issue is there in part to keep people afraid. If people don't wear masks, people are less afraid.
Yes, and I don't want to take a position about the epidemiology of it or the transmissibility with or without masks. It's a whole other subject. I'm talking from the psychological point of view. We need to see each other's faces. We are primed to react to each other's faces. Babies first learn to recognize someone's eyes, nose, and mouth. And if we have kids in masks all the time, even at home, because some states and some cities, jurisdictions are even advocating wearing masks at home. And if we do that, we're depriving each other of the most essential human-to-human feedback that makes us human.
And healthy.
And healthy.
Yes, okay. Let's go to Jacksonville, Florida. And Karen, hello.
Hello, Dennis.
Hi.
And hello, Dr. Marmer.
Hello, Karen.
This is the second time. Hello. I've called in before, oddly enough, when Dr. Marmer was your guest, and the topic was bad childhoods. And having gone through a bad childhood, I was always afraid of everything. I was afraid of being alone. I was afraid of never having a family of my own because I was in an orphanage. But I grew to have a husband and 2 children, and I have a grandchild, and that fear is gone. Then after I got divorced, I was afraid of not being able to support my young children because my ex didn't work. But I ended up surviving through my career. I supported my kids. I can't be hurt in that regard anymore.
That's right. That's her theory. She can't be hurt anymore. Back in a moment. That's your regular Karen from Jacksonville calling.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I have never seen in my life the orchestrated hatred to a group of Americans as I am seeing now. It's orchestrated hatred. You are allowed to hate the unvaccinated. Even if the unvaccinated had COVID already, and there is no scientific reason whatsoever for them to take as minimal a risk as it is the vaccine. You are to hate these people. They are killers. They are killing you and themselves. This is this piece of crap governor of California on television.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Schools are lining up to push the transgender agenda on kids and cut parents out of the equation.
Go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
You ever thought of going to seminary?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The Democratic Party somehow has convinced black people that they're the good guys. Never mind the skanky history of the Democratic Party. That was a party of slavery.
They're racist, racist, racist. Everything's racist.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth.
Less than they should, but that's okay.
The people who paid for the Ner Tamid came up to us and said,
Final segment of the Happiness Hour. The subject is the holidays, and the subject is fear. Dr. Stephen Marmer is my guest. He's been on many times on the Happiness Hour. He's a psychiatrist in L.A., teaches psychiatry at UCLA. Please don't hang up, folks, because I'd like to summarize some of your calls. Dave in Arizona, his grandmother always said, "Don't cry before you get hurt." I love that saying. I never heard it, Dave. That is exactly right. You'll have plenty of time to cry after you get hurt. Why do it in advance? I love it. Lynn, also in Arizona, he is a father but a risk taker. Right, so good. Good for his kids, right?
Right.
Good. Let's see. Stephen in Hudson, Wisconsin. Has Dr. Marmer done anything to snap us out of this fear?
I'm trying to.
That's exactly right.
If you accept that life has adversity and you're prepared to meet it and you have the courage to face it, you're not going to succumb to fear. You'll have realistic caution, but you don't succumb to fear.
Excellent. Thousand Oaks, California. Greg, he chose happiness over fear, even with all the news that's going on today. It's a choice. That's my whole thesis. Choose it. By the way, when young people on my fireside chats will say, "So how do you get courageous?" The answer sounds simplistic, but I don't think it is. Decide to become courageous.
Yes, practice.
Practice. That's right. Nancy in Philadelphia, her friend won't read a fairy tale to her daughter because they're scary.
Which is the exact opposite, because putting the fairy tale's fears into proportion was exactly what Bruno Bettelheim said was important for kids to learn how to do so that they could do it even better when they're adults.
You equip your child with the ability to deal with hardship and even frightening things by letting them know they exist. That's the fairy tale point.
Correct.
And they overcome it.
Correct.
Well, what a time we're living through. Well, as I always say, your patients are lucky. We're lucky to have you on the show. My friends, it is all a choice. Nearly everything is a choice. I learned that from Viktor Frankl when I was in high school. We do not choose what happens to us, but we do choose how to react to what happens to us. That might be the one freedom we have. So that's the message of this Happiness Hour. And now call in on any subject under the sun, 1-8-PRAGER-776.
Have you ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermanos. ¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de su palabra?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
Our lunch consisted of whatever my mother could scrape together from the dinner the night before. We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO. Put in an economic growth plan called 999.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Have you ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermanos. ¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de su palabra?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
You're out of your mind if you think this family can pick you up every time you fall.
Every time I take one step forward, seems like I fall.
Boy, Dylan Wright came in this morning. He wants to fight you.
Never say die, gonna give it all.
This is your opportunity to get back on your feet.
This is my time. Won't quit, I'll just be.
You gotta know who it is you're fighting for. That's the fight, Bo.
I can't believe I'm saying it, that Bo Lawson can go 10 years without a competitive fight, and here he is going toe-to-toe with the world champion. No one expected this out of him.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Good. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I'm a green card holder, have been for 20 years.
Thank you. From where?
When I first, from South Africa.
Excellent. Thank you.
When I came into this country, I had to have blood tests to see that I didn't have syphilis, gonorrhea, HIV. I had to show all kinds of vaccinations. I had to show means to be able to
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dennis Prager Show, the hour you set the agenda, whatever's on your mind. About life, about death, about me, about you. Or even if you want to comment on Will, who's sitting in today, actually standing in, for Sean McConnell, Triple G, as we know him. Will, we don't have a nickname for you.
Stud?
Stud. Oh, my God. That's the male brain in a nutshell. That is perfect. Oh my God. I don't need a male-female hour next week. That alone was clarifying. Hi, y'all. Dennis Prager here. In the midst of an attempt to suppress happiness, most organized attempt that I have ever seen. I reported in the first hour that the Dutch Prime Minister has told people not to hug their grandchildren this Christmas. Wow. I would say that the word leader is the least applicable word among world leaders, that there is no word more unfitting for the people in charge of countries than the word leader. One after another is a coward and a wimp and leads people in cowardice and weakness. From Joe Biden to the Dutch Prime Minister. It is unbelievable. All they know is how to suppress liberty because they're so afraid that they should ever be accused of having somebody die on their watch. That's what it's about. Their fear of their reputation. They don't want to be recorded in history as having been responsible for any of their citizens dying. So they will ruin their country in the name of that value, if it is a value. That's what it's about. I mean, think when you think about Macron and Trudeau and Biden, I mean, these are nothings. Nothings. The word leader is so inappropriate. Yep. All right, let's go to your calls here. All right, Liam, we're not going to be, I don't know the connection between the Nazi youth and transgenderism, so thank you for the call. I can't take every call that comes in. Some are too esoteric. Some I've talked about a lot, or whatever it might be. So don't be offended in any way. Obviously, you have got some real good thoughts on a whole host of subjects, but I can't take every call. All right, let's see here. Andrew in Sacramento, California. Hello.
Hello, Dennis. I was thinking about why Netanyahu lost the election and why there was so much apathy among conservatives in Israel. I think because of his reaction or panic over the COVID-19 situation by closing businesses down. I think it pissed off a lot of people, including one of your guests, one of your tourist guides told us about that. All they care about is high tech in Israel, and I think that at the beginning there was a quiet backlash.
Israel has been. That's a very important point you raise. Israel has been as big a disappointment as any country. I'll tell you an interesting thing. I was on a podcast with one of Israel's leading conservatives. I mean, truly a true right winger. He had me on for an hour on a Zoom podcast from Israel. And I was talking about America, and I mentioned in passing about conservatives' anger about the vaccine mandate, etc. And then he said, just, you should know, this is the one area where we Israeli conservatives differ with you American conservatives, and that is on COVID and the vaccine. And so it was very disappointing for me to hear. I think he's right. I think most conservatives in Israel are as paranoid about COVID as liberals in Israel.
Yep. I think costing the prime ministership.
Well, I don't know. Well, it's an interesting question. I'm agnostic on that. I just don't know. I mean, if in fact most conservatives in Israel agreed with Netanyahu about closing down the society, which is what my distinguished, he's very well known, I won't say his name because he's not here to talk to me about it, but then he didn't lose the prime ministership over that. I don't know how many Israelis are as angry as most American conservatives are. I don't know. That's why I said America's the last best hope more than ever. We have the only organized opposition. Now, interestingly, Europe has far more demonstrations against the tyranny, the dictatorship, the totalitarianism of the governments in Europe. But, and by the way, that's not to the Americans' credit that we don't have large demonstrations. I went to a demonstration last March or April against Los Angeles City, at Los Angeles City Hall, against the Los Angeles City government for its lockdowns, crushing people's businesses for absolutely no good reason while they allowed Target to stay open. The American left is the greatest friend of big business in the history of American politics. The protector, the colluder with big business is the Democratic Party. And they doubled their incomes. The amount of money they made in COVID while small businesses were crushed is truly vile. But so they demonstrate more, but we have a more active opposition. And God willing, in the 2022 elections, there will be such a wipeout of the despicable Democratic Party, the D is for despicable, that there will be major changes in this country. If they pass this multi-trillion-dollar, what is it?
Build back better.
What is the first? Build. Oh yeah, I always forget that. Build back better. Oh God. I don't know if it'll be able to undo that damage. Give people fortunes of money to not to work and print the money with which to do it. How's that? If they don't want to crush America, they certainly do things that do crush America. Anyway, Israel's conservatives are pretty much in line with regard to the vaccine and with regard to lockdowns. I'm sorry to say. Okay, let's see. All right, I'll just comment on it. I don't share this view, but I don't want to get into a debate. I'm happy to debate, but I want to honor the person in Lancaster, California. Mike Pence is a rat in sheep's clothing, and Kamala is a rat dressed as a rat. I don't think that Mike Pence is a rat dressed in sheep's clothing. The man was a completely loyal vice president. Let me say something about that call, or about that sentiment. It's another terrible development in my lifetime. To many people, including apparently conservatives, such as my caller, a lifetime of good works is meaningless in assessing a person with whom you differ over one item. That's it. Oh, Mike Pence, as loyal as you could get as a vice president for 4 years. And then, because he didn't stop the vote of the Electoral College, he's now a rat in sheep's clothing. He's not a rat in sheep's clothing. There's little hope for humanity if you can lose your moral credibility that quickly. Would my caller have said that Mike Pence was a rat in sheep's clothing while he was vice president? I mean, for the 4 years prior to that? Of course not. But there it is. He did one thing I disagree with. He's a rat. I'm sorry I didn't take your call. I'm sure you have responses, but I didn't want to ignore your call. Back in a moment. I'm Dennis Prager.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.
Streaming on Salem Now.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
Our lunch consisted of whatever my mother could scrape together from the dinner the night before. We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO. Put in an economic growth plan called 999.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The only time you can come to Christ, when the Spirit of God
Have you ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermanos. ¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de sus palabras?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
You're out of your mind if you think this family can pick you up every time you fall.
Every time I take one step forward, seems like I fall.
Boy, Dylan Wright came in this morning. He wants to fight you.
Never say die, gonna give it all.
This is your opportunity to get back on your feet.
This is my time. Won't quit, I've just begun.
You gotta know who it is you're fighting for. That's the fight, Bo.
I can't believe I'm saying it, that Bo Lawson can go 10 years without a competitive fight, and here he is going toe-to-toe with the world champion. No one expected this out of him.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Good. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I'm a green card holder, have been for 20 years.
Thank you. From where?
When I first, from South Africa.
Excellent. Thank you.
When I came into this country, I had to have blood tests to see that I didn't have syphilis, gonorrhea, HIV. I had to show all kinds of vaccinations. I had to show means to be able to support myself, et cetera, et cetera. So my point being is that the law is not being upheld as we understand it. And so I don't understand how they are circumnavigating the law again. I mean, obviously allowing these people into the country in the first place without proper vetting.
Another great one. A quick reminder that you could save family per year $800. It sounds too good to be true, so I actually tested it out. I can't tell you something that I don't know to be true. With Pure Talk, get the same service as T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, except it's only $30 a month for unlimited text, unlimited talk, and 6 gigabytes of data. You can get phones, brand new phones, at a tremendous discount as well. And you will save about $800 per family per year. So give it a try. Dial pound 250 and say Dennis Prager on your current phone. You can keep your number, you can keep your phone. You can change your number and change your phone. You can keep your number and change your phone. But you'll save a lot of money, and it's a nice thing to do, save money. Pound 250 and say Dennis Prager. That's Pure Talk is the name of the company. This is the hour. You ask whatever you would like. And Eric in Racine, Wisconsin. Hello.
Hi, Mr. Prager. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to thank you and give a shout out to some of your listeners. My wife and I this past year had to quit our jobs due to obvious reasons. And my wife was in the medical field. She wasn't going to comply with the mandate, so she had to quit. Otherwise, she wouldn't get her benefits or time off money. Otherwise, they would have just stripped her of that and let her go. For myself, I had to quit because no one wanted to work, so my company wasn't allowing me to take any of my planned vacations during the summer, so I wasn't able to take, they were going to tell me I wasn't able to take my children to South Dakota. So I gave them my 2-week notice and found another job.
So why are you thanking me?
Because I took your advice when you were saying to be a stay-at-home mom, get your children out of school. And so my wife and I, we made really good money, and we decided, our children are more important. And,
great! So that's what
you're
thanking me about. That you're now homeschooling your children.
Yeah, well, they're actually in private school right now, but we're going to make the sacrifice. We actually took them out of public school this year, put them in the private, and then now we're going to figure out how we do it for this year.
Well, you made my day. The schools are awful. There are very few exceptions, private or public. There are some exceptions. The issue isn't CRT, not CRT. The issue is, do you teach the children, among other things, that America is systemically racist? Not all of them say CRT, critical race theory, but it's irrelevant whether they say the word, but they get around the accusation by saying, show us where we're teaching critical race theory. So they're teaching the equivalent of critical race theory. America is racist and always has been racist. That's it. That's what they teach. What percentage of people in the United States, young people, in elementary school, high school, college, university, or graduate school, what percentage know that 3 million black people moved to the United States willingly in the last few decades? 2 million from Africa, 1 million from the Caribbean. How many know that? The answer is very close to zero. Shows you how they're lied to. They say, we want to show the dark side. There's no problem. Of course you should show the dark side of American history. But they don't show all the sides. They only show the dark side, these liars. These people with the broken moral compass. This is the best country in the world for a black human being. Okay? And you know who know it? Black human beings who come here. Would they come to a systemically racist country? As I've asked 100 times, did Jews move to Germany in the 1930s? Gee, they didn't. Why not? Because it was systemically racist, anti-Semitic specifically. You know why there are so many race hoaxes like Jussie Smollett? You know why? Because there's so little racism in the United States. So they have to make it up. If there were a lot of racism, why would Jussie Smollett have made it up? Alex, Philadelphia, a city in decline. Hello.
Dennis, hello. Blessing to always talk with you. Thank you for taking my call. And this is the greatest country for any human being.
That's correct.
But calling because I wanted your advice on continuing the discussion of education. And my preschool for my 3-year-old has a mandate that there's a rule that all children must be masked. And obviously, I don't know how to phrase it other than saying there's no question that this is making it harder for my child to develop and making them not as smart as he could be
That's
for not
correct.
seeing faces, interacting, everything
That's
else.
right. So why do you send
so I
them
guess
there? Why do you send the child there?
Well, I guess that's a good question because we want to send them somewhere where he can still be social, still be, I still would like to send him through the school system as opposed to homeschooling them, although, I'm getting closer and closer to getting towards the homeschool.
Well, yes, then they'll have other homeschool kids to socialize with, and they're probably not wearing masks because they are independent-minded and they follow science, not superstition. But I think it's terrible for your child to be with people, with especially other kids whose faces they don't see. And it's also teaching your child to be scared at a very early age. The mask...
Yeah, absolutely. It breaks my heart, and I find it abhorrent.
Well, let me say, my heart breaks for you. To be a parent today, it's the worst time to be a parent in American history. Remember, the left ruins everything it touches? Parenthood is another example. It is the worst time to be a parent in American history. On the first hour, I read to you about this man's city, Philadelphia, competing with San Francisco for the sickest city in the United States. And there's a Philadelphia school district that allows the children in elementary school to say that they are non-binary, meaning that they're neither a male nor a female, without telling the parents, without having it legally authorized, without having a doctor's note. They just say, yeah, you know what? I'm not a boy or a girl. Why would you want to send your child to such a school? 1-8-PRAGER-776. I'm Dennis Prager.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
How buoyed are you that Americans are finally waking up, JD?
Look, I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. Certainly in Virginia, but also in Ohio. It feels like there's a real grassroots movement brewing on the conservative movement right now. And it's, just like in times past, it's not just the politicos, it's not just the establishment folks. Sometimes not even people who are that political, but they're just very fired up about what their kids are teaching. Their kids are coming home crying, upset because they're being told that they're a bad person depending on the color of their skin, and they're just fed up about it. And I think it may very well take down Terry McAuliffe, but I certainly think it is the beginning of a movement all across this country that's going to take down a lot of Democrats all over the nation.
In the break, we were talking to my team here, and somebody said, "Well, it's neck and neck, and if Glenn loses by 3 points, that's a big deal in any other normal election." And here's the reaction I have, JD. there is no such thing as a normal election after 2016. Do we have any faith that there will be a normal election? Talk to us about the recent breaking news about Facebook and the censorship of conservatives. You've written a piece about it. How do we get back to quote unquote normal, JD?
Oh man, we got a lot of work to do. Facebook did two things basically in the 2020 election, one of which we've known about for a while. They basically censored information that was negative about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. They promoted information that was negative about Donald Trump. And I really believe that swung the election in a really important way.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
You called your son. You personally promised him you would be here.
Lucas, I don't know how to help you.
Your daddy loves you. You gotta know it, pal.
Prayer is a powerful thing, Ethan. It really does work, if you believe.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Have you ever wondered what I have to say about a specific politician, issue, or country? And now go to DennisPrager.com, search for and listen to my views on just about anything. That's right. I now have my very own search engine. You can even share these clips with your friends. Visit my website at DennisPrager.com. Hi everybody. Dennis Prager here. And Tarzana, California, Walter, hello.
Oh, Dennis.
Hi.
We have loved you since Religion on the Line, and despite my call today, I want you to know we still love you. But,
thank you.
You said something about this. Forgive me, because usually I prepare for this. There was no time to prepare for this. And
That's okay.
It's really, my wife and I went to a dinner at Four Seasons yesterday where the fellow that wrote Woke Inc. or whatever it was.
Right, Woke Inc., yeah.
The Woke book, yeah.
Right.
And it was just a normal thing, and a bright, young, articulate, and that. But what he did to Trump at the end of his speech just infuriated me and made me think more and more about what the realities of the Trump thing and what we had given up and everything that made Trump what it is. And it's like people think that you find somebody that's smart and good and nice, and this is going to be the answer. Trump had some cards in his deck that I don't believe much of anybody else has. And
so you're upset that I said that he shouldn't run. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let me explain something. I believe that Donald Trump was the best president of my lifetime. Might have been the best president since Abraham Lincoln. Okay? Number one. Number two,
absolutely.
There was nobody who supported the president more than I. There were many who supported him as much as I, of course, but not more than I for the 4 years he was president and when he ran for president. So my track record on Donald Trump is in terms of supporting him because he was such a good president, is quite sterling. I don't think he'll win if he runs, and I have a bigger agenda than supporting Donald Trump, defeating the left. The left is ruining this country. All I care about is defeating the left. I have no other agenda. I am loyal to no one. I am loyal to America. And America is being ruined, destroyed by the left. And if he won't win, what is the good of my love of him? Okay? I love a lot of people. I don't want them to run if they won't win. I am certain he wouldn't win. I may be wrong.
Okay, well,
you are certain he will win. Wonderful. But that's the reason that I don't want him to run. Because if he runs, it will enable every independent to focus on Trump and not on what the left is doing to America.
So much of what I have to say to you and more other things, can I write?
Yes, please do. Yes, I'll be happy to read it. Just send it to Dennis at DennisPrager.com. Donald Trump was the only Republican who could defeat Hillary Clinton, and he's the only Republican who can lose in 2024. That's how I look at it. There is only one agenda for everyone who loves America: defeat the left. Okay? The left ruins this country. It ruins everything. It has ruined everything. Why is that so difficult for a conservative to understand? Of course a leftist doesn't understand that. They revel in destroying schools, in teaching kids they're not boys and girls. They revel in it. They revel in teaching kids that America is a cesspool. They revel in making district attorneys who won't prosecute people who steal anything under $950. They revel in destruction. They're a force of demonic chaos. But why would a conservative not have any other agenda than defeating the left? Nothing else matters in politics. Doesn't matter if you love Donald Trump. It doesn't matter how great he was as a president, and he was great. It only matters who will win. Why is that not obvious to every single conservative who loves this country? I don't understand it. I am as confused by that as I am by Trump derangement syndrome. That all people on the left, they became mad. I had a psychiatrist in here, Dr. McDonald. He truly believes, and now I do. I didn't believe it for 4 years. It has taken over the psyches of the haters of Donald Trump. There really is a Trump derangement syndrome. But I am now perceiving on the opposite end a Trump love syndrome. We had a caller that I didn't take earlier called Mike Pence a rat. Mike Pence is a rat because he didn't go the ultimate step of loyalty to President Trump, in their opinion. 4 years of magnificent loyalty to the president, and he's now a rat? Yeah. That's when things get depressing, when your own side loses sight of the big picture, and the big picture is defeating the left.
Relief Factor.
Call Relief Factor at 800-500-8384. Try it out for 3 weeks for $19.95. That's all I'm asking you. If you have any joint or muscle pain, or just go to their website, relieffactor.com, and then send me a thank you note.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Have you ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermano. ¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de sus palabras?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
You're out of your mind if you think this family can pick you up every time you fall.
Every time I take one step forward, seems like I fall.
Boy, Dylan Wright came in this morning. He wants to fight you.
Never say die, gonna give it all.
This is your opportunity to get back on your feet.
This is my time. Won't quit, I'll just be.
You gotta know who it is you're fighting for. That's the fight, Bo.
I can't believe I'm saying it, that Bo Lawson can go 10 years without a competitive fight, and here he is going toe-to-toe with the world champion. No one expected this out of him.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Good. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I'm a green card holder, have been for 20 years.
Thank you. From where?
When I first, from South Africa.
Excellent. Thank you.
When I came into this country, I had to have blood tests to see that I didn't have syphilis, gonorrhea, HIV. I had to show all kinds of vaccinations. I had to show means to be able to support myself, et cetera, et cetera. So my point being is that the law is not being upheld as we understand it. And so I don't understand how they are circumnavigating the law.
Hi, all. Good to be with you. Dennis Prager here. All right, let's see what else is on your mind. Alex, Castaic, California. Hello.
Hey, Dennis. I've got a question for you. I need some advice on how to handle my my daughter. She's 12 years old. We recently got her a phone, held out for a long time, trying to keep her off electronics. And now, instead of spending enough time doing homework or reading or even watching TV, we catch her on the phone listening to your fireside chats nonstop.
Yeah, that is an issue. I feel for you.
I don't know what to do. She neglects her other things, and she wakes up in the morning and turns it on and listens to it as she gets ready for school. I think she's had the phone for 2 months, and she's probably listened to about 30 episodes. And she's becoming way too logical. So I don't know how to discipline her. What do I can't take away her.
Frankly, I would buy her a car. What a great call. What a great dilemma. I do a fireside chat each week. I have for 220 weeks. Not missed a week. It's on YouTube at prageru.com. It's just me talking into the camera, thinking about life, and a vast number of young people watch it. It is a phenomenon that so many young people watch it. I'm stopped at airports much more by young people than by old people. And I don't fully have an answer or an explanation. Why is this man's 12-year-old daughter, why is she so mesmerized by a man who's so much older than her? So I think about that. It is a fascinating question. I mean, Prager, 65% of its listeners and viewers are under 35 in general. So why is it true about my weekly fireside chat? I have a feeling, but I'm not certain this is true, but I have a feeling that young people crave adult wisdom. I think it's built in, so to speak, because consciously or not, young people know they don't understand life. And as you get to be 12, 13, 14, 15, it's even more confusing. So maybe an adult who confidently offers you goodness, wisdom, and acts like an adult isn't a child wannabe. I think it has an appeal to them. Anyway, that's my theory. You should all, if your child is not doing it on his or her own, and I mean child from anywhere from 30 down to 13, pay them. Certainly the teenager, pay them to watch PragerU videos and my fireside chat. Very good. Let's see here. Robin in Brick, New Jersey. Hi, Robin of Brick.
Hi, Dennis. Love the show.
Thank you.
Listen often.
Good.
I just want to say, because I say to friends and family and everyone, and to your audience, to you, that education and children are so important. And long ago I learned that education is not neutral. That was a lie pushed by the left in the media. Every education system has a philosophy of life, and the secular school system has philosophy that I don't agree with, humanism. As a Christian, we have raised our kids in a Christian home, and through sacrifice have educated them at home. I mean, there's lots of businesses produce all kinds of great and affordable homeschool curriculum that really have helped us over the years. And our oldest has graduated about 2 years ago and has been in college, a Christian college, for 2 years succeeding. She just finished her finals and got straight A's because of her work ethic, not because she's, let's say, brilliant, even though she is very intelligent and smart, but her work ethic taught through our encouragement as parents greatly influenced her, both her worldview and her outlook on life and her work ethic.
That's right.
And I think that if there were so many more people that did that,
that's right. That would solve the problems of
America. Yes, America would be different.
That's right. That is exactly right. You want one solution to the problems of America? To the left's attempt to destroy it? Take your kid out of school and homeschool them. That's it. That would do it in one fell swoop. And there is no other one thing that could so benefit this country as that. And unless it is absolutely necessary, like for STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, don't send your kid to college. Unless you are certain about their values and that they won't be poisoned into the beliefs that it is fair to women to have biological males compete against them in female sports. The girls on the University of Pennsylvania swim team who lost with all their life's hard work of swimming to the biological male who decided he was a female in his senior year at the University of Pennsylvania, they won't even speak out. Their whole swim career has been ruined by this man, and they won't speak out. They're so afraid of the University of Pennsylvania crushing them. The Cornell girls who lost to this guy won't speak out. They're afraid that Cornell will crush them. That's quite something, isn't it? They know that they have been cheated by the University of Pennsylvania and Cornell, and can't even say so. Back in a moment.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Fiance? No, I can't be your fiance.
You're gonna go. You're gonna be my fiance, and you're gonna be the most amazing, fascinating, most successful man ever. We're only gonna be there for a few hours, eat dinner, and I promise we'll have the best breakup of all time.
My baby, my princess. Oh, yeah.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
When there is a clash on the left between separate preferred activist groups, who gets preference? Who wins? Now, on the left, they have a hierarchy. Not any different than a hierarchy that you'd have in any sort of organization. You see, when the left has a moment of disagreement or conflict, it is very important to realize that there is a structure of what matters more than something else. I wrote a piece for humanevents.com where I wrote, it was literally called, "This Matters More Than That." Now, a great example of this is when Fauci, the lockdown artist, the anti-freedom activist, mad scientist, who is the best example of the technological and scientific elite that the left worships. When he was even confronted by a talk show host where they asked Fauci, they said, so do you think that young people should stop hooking up via Tinder and basically having very promiscuous relationships? And Fauci said, well, you have to understand there's some risk to that. He didn't denounce it because he understood that if he came out against promiscuous behavior for young people, there'd be a revolution.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Right. So this has changed in the culture. We now have entire stadiums screaming blank Joe Biden.
Right.
I actually think that in some measure, this is a sign of health.
Let me summarize some of your calls. Dennis Prager here. Please don't hang up. Matt in the Poconos in Pennsylvania, an area I know well, by the way. Why do you think that Donald Trump would not win? Because the entire race would be about Donald Trump and not about what the left is doing to ruin this country. That's why. Lori in Naples, Florida, agrees with me that Donald Trump should not run again. Look, people are divided. So long as you understand that you can't demonize the people who don't think he should run. If he runs, I'm going to support him vigorously. Okay. But don't fall into the trap that the left does, which is, we don't agree on one thing, you're not my ally anymore. It's a very bad thing to think about. Okay, let's see. Daniel in Arizona is a stay-at-home dad. We need to educate our kids about pain so it is not such a shock later in life. Brilliantly said. That's exactly right. That's right. It's part of life. Too many kids, which is, since World War II, this has been the case. Overwhelmingly, the assumption is that life is to be pain-free. Terry, Minneapolis, you, Dennis, have never talked about the rebranding of CRT in schools. I guess you made that call before this hour because I talked about it this hour. So whether it's called CRT or not, it is. I just don't want to call it CRT because it is rebranded. Exactly right. Aaron in Cleveland, Ohio, you should have a best of COVID show. That's funny. I mean, I know you'd be to be funny, and I'm not saying this to put it down at all. I think it is just funny. And now, a best of COVID show. I think that's adorable. All right, everybody. Richard in Havertown, Pennsylvania, has a friend who's gone off the deep end with regard to Donald Trump. Yeah. It is a phenomenon. Among many other reasons this is very much a class struggle. He doesn't act or talk like the editors of the New York Times want you to act and talk. I talk like them, and I talk the opposite of what they believe, and that does drive them a little crazy. But that's another issue. Hey, listen, everybody, I wish you a wonderful weekend, and I'm off to Indianapolis. I'll see you on Monday.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.